Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a video I expected to be making back in January, but here we are in June talking about Todd Howard's response to Fallout 76's failed launch alongside its criticisms. Now we're going to be going over everything today, and I mean everything because I've seen a lot of YouTubers and news sites gloss over a couple major quotes and not really go into the nitty gritty, which I think adds a lot more context to the conversation, so we're definitely going to be doing that. This interview comes from IGN's Unfiltered series conducted by Ryan McCaffrey, one of the few voices in games journalism I personally respect, so they picked the right guy for the job. Anyway, we're going to be going quote by quote. I'll give my thoughts as we go along, so let's dive right into it. We knew we were going to have a lot of bumps. That's a difficult development, a lot of new systems and things like that. Anytime you do something new like that, you know you're going to have your bumps. You know people might say that's not the game they want from you, but we still want to be somebody who is trying new things. Yeah, so here's one of those situations where it's kind of difficult to describe how you feel because while Fallout 76 was a mess and it's still easily my least favorite Fallout game, I'm happy they did it, right? That's kind of weird to say, but if they didn't experiment, they wouldn't have known. It's better for them to know and move on rather than them to never know at all. You know, as creators, you're driven by that force on the inside to make something you're passionate about. And this was their passion. And the good thing is it's a games as a service. So maybe in a couple of years, this will be a very good game. But right now, it does not stand in that place. However, I'm glad that they pursued something that they believed in because that's very important. If they were to go make Fallout 5, say, set in San Francisco, but they didn't really believe in that, we would have had an even more lackluster RPG experience than Fallout 4. I want Bethesda to feel truly inspired when they sit down to make the next Fallout entry. Something that really adds that role-playing that we saw, for example, in Far Harbor, something they're very capable of. That was an inspired creation. You could tell it's something they really wanted to do. And I think we didn't see that in the case with Fallout 76. But nonetheless, I'm glad they did it. They got it out of their system because I also feel like 76 was a framework to make sure that multiplayer could work in Bethesda's engine. While I believe they're going to update it for future games, still, it's something that they needed to know because I feel titles like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are definitely going to have multiplayer components. A lot of those difficulties ended up on screen. We knew this is not the type of game people are used to from us, and we're going to get a lot of criticism on this. A lot of it very well deserved criticism. Yes, indeed, no surprise there, right? At least he knows, and I think people are reading this going, well, what's the big deal so far? It's this next quote. When interviewer Ryan McCaffrey brought up Todd Howard and his team's legacy, where they consistently dropped high-scored games, Todd Howard responded with the following. We knew from the beginning this wasn't going to be a high Metacritic game. That's not what this is, given what it is. We felt strongly this is a game we want to play and a thing we want to do. All of the games like this, whether it's us or somebody else, it's not how you launch, it's what you become.
Not chocolate, nor is it poop, it's shit.
It all makes sense now. It was a part of the plan, everybody. Don't you get it now? Now it all makes sense. They expected it to go like this. Holy smokes. Oh, they took us for a loop for the last about half a year or so. Wow. Okay, all joking aside, I think I sort of get what he's trying to say, but all it sounds like to me is they're leaning into the excuse of games as a service typically launch poorly, so therefore, screw it, ours is going to launch poorly too. My question in response would have been, Todd, why didn't your team decide to be the team that changed it all? Why didn't you launch a games as a service title that proved everyone wrong? It can come out polished, it can come out in a successful manner, it can come out with all of its content. There can be relatively little bugs. Yes, there are stumbles with games as a service. These are titles that are meant to develop over time, and especially when it's your first time doing something like this, I can understand some of the initial struggles, ladies and gentlemen. But when we look at The Division 2, come on. Right there, right in front of Todd's face, a game that just came out in the last couple of months negated everything that he had just said. That game launched fine. It had all of its content. It had great post-launch support. There was communication with the devs. I haven't played it in about 2 to 3 months, so maybe things have changed. But what I'm saying is that that's a game that was a games as a service title. It launched fine. It did well. And it totally counteracts what Todd was saying. However, there is some truth to the second part of his statement. It is what these games become. That's sort of what you're buying into. Hopefully the launch product, we'll say again in the case of The Division 2, is quality enough to satiate your thirst for this game, to be enjoyable, to be a good, complete experience, but also knowing that there is content coming your way down the line. And in the case of Fallout 76, or The Division 2. It is free updates that keep you engaged as this world around you evolves, but that base product has to be good enough for you to buy in and spend your time in while the development team works on new stuff. It is very much about what it becomes, but I also think it is how you launch. You need to have that good product at the start, because I have to go back to it again. The Division 2 shows us how you can sink about 30 to 40 hours in the game and enjoy yourself very thoroughly at that. I thought that was a fantastic game and still look forward to what it will become. It's very possible to have both. And it did happen, Todd. Todd Howard emphasized it was a strong release for them, performing well, and that there is a fantastic community behind it. When it came to improving the game, he said there's no better strategy than just focusing on making the game better. Of course, the criticism is unfortunate, but it was well deserved. Todd mentions that he had read as many reviews and comments as possible. He says they've really experienced it all, where they released those games that are in the high 90s, snagging all the Game of the Year awards, and there's situations like this. It comes with the territory. Now, we actually heard Todd Howard mention that Fallout 76 had sold millions of copies during a PAX East panel, so he was emphasizing that again here with it being a strong release. They do have a player base, but one thing we need to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, is that Anthem exists, and that was a title that up until March was a title that actually led the sales charts across the world, and yet here it is now, hardly having a player base. So maybe Fallout 76 did sell millions of copies, and you can view that as fortunate or unfortunate. Perhaps their player base is a little more active, it seems. I think the community is fantastic, but despite it being a strong release for them, we don't know how many people are logging in on the daily. And that's what's really strange about the games industry. There is this secrecy of data. And I don't really understand why. Why can't we know the sales numbers? Why can't we have a site that allows us to consistently access very accurate numbers on the daily player base? Why is all of this hidden until press release happens where they decorate the numbers? And when there isn't anything good happening, we still have those numbers hidden from us. We see that last generation with the Xbox and PS3, where PS3 was not touting its sales numbers, and it feels like every fucking month now Sony is touting the PS4 sales numbers. Same thing in reverse for Xbox. Last gen it was all sales numbers. This gen, just we're having our most successful launch. But you don't really see it as often, and there's just this odd secrecy with data that is once again happening here because people are gonna swallow it and just go, all right, whatever. What we learned from Fallout 76 is you have to let it bake for a while with a large live audience for longer. There are certain things you could never see until it's running 24/7 for a number of months. If there's one thing I would have done differently, is to find a way to let more people at scale to be playing the game 24/7 before you say, everybody in, here you go, pay us. Now, this is a good perspective to have now, but at launch this would have been a lot better. Now, when asked about possibly launching at Steam Early Access or Xbox Game Preview instead, Todd suggested possibly that it would have been a better route, or if you were a Fallout 4 player, then allowing you into the beta for a period of time for an exclusive access could have been something they could have done. He felt things like that would have made a world of a difference despite there still being issues no matter what. He argues it could have even given them a better look. Well, at least there is a learning experience here, in that Todd mentions what exactly they learned, that you have to let it bake longer, aka don't rush your game out. That's simple as that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to go ahead and dance around the statement, kind of like he did here. It's just, boom, don't launch it if it isn't working. I think even a couple months, clearly based off the state of Fallout 76 now, would not have changed anything. This game needed like another year, guys. It needed another year to get in a fully polished state. It does run a lot better now. Some of the new content is solid, but ladies and gentlemen, that game needed a lot more time to be considered a full-on game launch, because as we all know, despite its state now, at launch, it was broken. Here's an interesting question. When asked if Fallout 76 had damaged Bethesda's brand, Todd says it would be naive to say it did not. Ryan then inquired Todd about whether or not it offers optimism to see the likes of Sea of Thieves or No Man's Sky be so well regarded despite their rocky launch. And Todd responded with, you can take the most popular online games, go back to day zero, and they're going to go through their problems. And you're going to see that across the industry. That's the part we knew going in. No matter what, we're going to have some problems. We needed to make sure we continue that momentum from before launch onwards. So this sounds like a situation where Bethesda's perspective actually may have been incredibly skewed going into this games as a service market, where they were like, okay, no matter what we do, we're losing. And we have such a great reputation that even if we take some damage, this title will still sell well, which it seems like, according to Todd, despite once again not having access to any data, it seems like the game did do quite well. But all I'm seeing is a company, a team that led the industry being a bunch of followers. That's all I'm really seeing here. I'm seeing Bethesda Game Studios, a team going, the rest of the industry struggled, so are we. When these guys were like pioneers of the RPG genre, the pioneers of open world gaming, like they are the definers in many ways next to Rockstar. Like they were in super high company. And not that they've completely lost out. Like I still remain excited for Starfield and hopeful that that game, when I think we're getting it in 2020, will be a turning point for Bethesda to win back some respect. I still look at this and go, what? Why did you guys not believe in yourselves? If you believe so hard in your vision to chase it enough, why didn't you believe hard enough to try to change the industry while you were at it? And we know that Bethesda's capable of that. Have you not noticed that since Fallout 4 had its big epic reveal at E3, that companies now release their games in a shorter release window? There is the announcement, and then 5 months, 6 months later, you have the game release. We no longer have those multi-year waiting windows, and that really started with Fallout 4. Bethesda knows they're very capable of changing the industry. So why did they go ahead and waver here? Well, I think they rushed the product out. It's as simple as that. And I'm not getting on a spiel because, like I said, in some ways, I've been enjoying Fallout 76 lately. Like, I usually dread getting gameplay, and now I actually enjoy it. So there are steps in the right direction there, and I do have a full 20-minute video on my channel if you'd like to check it out. It is me breaking down all of the DLC for the game so far, and whether or not you should hop in at this point in time. But anyway, that concludes the entire interview from IGN's Ryan McCaffrey with Todd Howard about the state of Fallout 76, its launch, and some of the criticisms that went alongside it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments down below. You heard plenty of mine, so it's your turn. Fire away, ladies and gentlemen. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.